Good morning. This is Jason Dupree with OCR Talk. This is episode 16. And I am just leaving my house and not leaving a venue or anything, but I'm actually heading out to work. I've got to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the week. But I just got back last night from the USAOCR National Championships, hosted by Phoenix Race out in Dalton, Georgia. And I wanted to discuss it and to go over some of the interesting things that happened. And I just didn't on the way back from the airport, and I didn't on the way home. Everything was so close. It was like 30 minutes from the venue to the airport. And when I got home, 20 minutes from home. And I think just everything went, like, overall pretty well. So I didn't have anything that was really pressing on my mind. You know, obviously a lot of times I come on these and talk about what went wrong and what was bad and it was hard and all that kind of stuff. And this time, it's not exactly like that. This time, it's more... There's some more interesting things. Like, it went pretty well overall, like I said. And, anyways, I'll get into it. So this was a 2-day event. It was a Saturday and Sunday. They had a 3K on Saturday and a 15K on Sunday. And so I got there Friday night. I actually got there late, and I really wanted to do some course scouting, as I have done in the past, but I just didn't have time. I got back from, OCRWC last Monday, and this week has just been crazy. And because I've taken off so much for work because of racing, I didn't want to take another Friday off after just taking a Wednesday through Monday off. So I chose to fly in Friday night, left after work on Friday, and and there was no course map. Things changed up for them after the hurricane that came through, so they were, basically not scrambling, but like working down to the last minute to decide where things were going to go, and so there was no course map. This was at a park with these really nice mountain bike trails and running trails. Pardon me, my sinuses are still acting up. They're better. I don't have pain in my ears, but they're still kind of I don't know. Everything's not perfect yet. I may have to. I don't know if I probably should go back to the doctor. I just haven't yet because I've been so busy. But nonetheless, so I got out there and we just had to wing it. We had like an idea of what the course. I don't even know if we had an idea. I mean, for the 15K, we had an idea because they said they were going to be running a certain, like on the park map, they were going to be running a certain trail there. And they did for part of it. So, race-wise, we saw Noel Medina, Kevin Thompson, Luke Lake. Aaron Lake, Vivian Tran, Rachel Waters, Elise McClintic. That's an interesting one. Let's see who else was here. So it might come back. But so it was a pretty small crowd, and after all the things people say, some people say that OCRWC had a small crowd. And when you want to talk about a small crowd, this was a small crowd. Does that mean that the race was no less good? The small crowd isn't what made makes a race less good or bad. It's obviously the production of the event, the quality of the obstacles, and then, of course, the people. Not the amount of people, but the quality of people. So I wouldn't say it was anywhere near OCRWC level, but I wouldn't say it was a bad race. It wasn't put on poorly. And they had some hiccups, like anybody, and they dealt with them, and everybody had a great time. Interestingly, I think the men on the 3K, I feel like Kevin Thompson had it pretty clearly won on the 3K. The 3K, so this was at a park, like I said, but the park had a kind of a base area with lots of just grassy rolling hills, and then a big mountain ridge behind it. This is the Georgia mountain ridge, so we're not talking, 10,000 feet or anything. This was probably like 1,000 feet or so. I don't know exactly what. Actually, I could look at my watch and see what my elevation gain was in the 15K. Yeah, so there's this cool just ridge off in the distance from the park that you could see. Not the distance, but like right there. And the trails went up into that ridge and then climbs up to the top of it and goes all the way across it. And they actually in the race, they actually went down the backside of the ridge too, and they came back up. But yeah, they go all the way across the ridge and then come back down, like further down. And pretty trails, very pretty area. So the 3K didn't have much climbing. It had the rolling hills at the bottom, but it didn't have any of the big hills in the back. And the 15K went all the way up those. So 3K, very short, hit the obstacles, boom, 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 and done at the end. They actually did an awesome job of having other race brands come in. A lot of more local stuff. Hildervat was there with an obstacle at the end. Bear Crawl. I mean, these are brands that I don't think I've ever heard of before. And I honestly, I don't know if I remember any of the other ones, but there was like 4 or 5 different ones. So yeah, Kevin, Kian O'Doyle, who got second at Midwest OCR. At Midwest OCR, he had very kind of like big curly hair, and here he had cut it, and I did not recognize him at all. Like, even watching him, the playback of the videos, I was like, I still don't recognize this kid. But yeah, second in the 3K, and then I can't remember third right now. For the women, Rachel Waters. Oh, no, for the women, Elise McClintock came in to the final rig in first. Now, this is World Obstacle style rules, so it's a 3-band system. And she came into the final obstacle with 1 band left. So they have 3 bands. And if you lose up to 2, these rules are not my favorite. I like that OCR has a variety of different ways to do things. This is by far my least favorite style of rule set. But doesn't mean it doesn't have its place. Actually, that's a good topic. I'll get into that. So, Rachel, Elise came in, and then there was like 4 girls on the rig, at the last rig at the same time. Elise got to the last part of the rig, which was a cargo net, and she chose not to use her feet, and she gassed out on them. She gassed out and fell, and that lost her 3rd band, which means she's a DNC, they say, did not complete. So she was in first place, and completely lost the race because of that. And Rachel Waters came through. She had 1 or 2 bands. And then if you have bands, if you have lost bands, at the very end there is a penalty loop. And then you do the loop before you finish. And you do it once for each band that you need to recover. And so she did her penalty loops, and this penalty loop was a wreck bag carry. And it was pretty good length, definitely. And so she finished first. And then Chris Swafford was in third. I'm blank on who was in second. I think it might have been Courtney Washington. She definitely wasn't like one of the first ones there, but she did such a good job on the obstacles that she got through. Maybe she only had one. Maybe she had 2 bands, whereas some of the other girls in front of her only had 1, so they had to do 2 penalty loops. And then she finished it out with, only had to do 1, so she passed. On the 15K, on the guys' side, let's see. Aaron Lake came in first with all 3 bands. So he went straight to the finish line. And then, actually, he passed Jonathan Stern on the final rig, but Jonathan Stern had 1 band. So he had 2 penalty loops he had to do. Kevin Thompson came in, he had all 3 bands, so he went straight to the finish line in second. And then Jonathan Stern completed his 2 loops before anybody else could get there and do their penalties, so he got third. Jonathan was out front the entire race. Pretty amazing. Like I mean, I've seen him run hard, but for 15K, I don't think I've ever seen him run that hard for that long. Like, I know I've seen him run hard for long, but like usually he's racing, guys that we consider elites, and he goes out in the front, but then he tapers off at some point. But he was out in front the whole way. For the women, Elise came in again in the front, and she had 1 band on that final rig, and she was more careful, took her time, finished it, did her 2 loops, and was still out first. Rachel Waters came actually, Chris Swafford came in with only 1 band, and she had to do 2 loops. And Rachel Waters came in third, but she had 2 bands, so she actually only had to do 1 loop. So she actually passed Chris on the penalty loops and got second. And then Chris got third. Again, she got third 2 days in a row, which she was stoked about. Again, people, quality of people. Like, everybody was excited, happy to be there, and really proud of their accomplishments. They had, the Elderbot rig wasn't bad. It's just the cargo net is tricky, and I think it got some people. The 2 rigs that were bad, that were tough, there was one with a axe. You had this wooden axe that you had to take. It was all rings, but you had to take the wooden axe and you had to take it through the obstacle, through the rings, by using it. And so you basically had an axe in one hand and an open hand in the other. So I don't know the exact rules on this thing. There was no written rule book, which obviously is something they need to do for when they have these events. What? I can't go that way. I'm going this way. So they had to go through the obstacle with the axe, but they had to use the axe. They couldn't just, like, as far as I know, they couldn't just, like, stick it in their pants, but it was a pretty big axe anyway. But you had to hook it into the ring. So you saw people, like, one hand, one hook, one hand on the ring. One hook on the ring, one hand on the ring, and back and forth. Some people were doing hook on the ring, both hands on the hook to swing to the next ring with a hand, and then unhook the hook, go to the next one. And so that one got a few people. And then there was another one that was these. It was like a bit T-bar, but it tilted. So it was like a V-shaped pipes, and it tilted as you grabbed it. And those were painted, and they were kind of slick, especially with the morning dew, and that got a lot of people. Basically, anybody that tried to use the green part, the pipe, fell. The only other way to get through was ropes and rings, but they were very far apart. So skipping the green part was tough. All right. So that's the race. I'm actually going to pick up my son. I'm going to go have breakfast with him, and then I'm going to drop him off, and then I'm going to head to the airport, and then I will talk to you guys again to chat more about the technical side of it all. See you in a bit. All right, the sun is up, and I've had breakfast, got my son off, which is just the saddest thing. I'm going to drop him off at, I don't know. I guess any of you people that grew up in split homes, you tell me what it's like. Was it weird? Was it sad? To me, it seems sad. I grew up, as much as my parents fought, because mostly because of my dad, he's got a temper, but we still had just one house. Just seems sad to have to go pick him up from somebody else's family and then go drop him back off. That's weird. Anyways, so technical wise, this race we opted for doing recorded and then live replay. And when I actually asked about it, cell phone coverage wise, I was told, yeah, definitely you want to do. I forgot that I didn't have a mic on. I didn't pay attention. Anyway, they told me, yeah, you definitely want to do not live because it's cell signal. And then I get out there, and I've got 5G, full bars, and I'm getting, speed test wise, I was getting like 400 down and 60 up. Like, probably some of the best speeds I've ever seen at a race, ever. Now, I don't know if that signal would have been the same on the mountain. You could actually see the cell tower on the mountain. So maybe when you got to the side of the mountain, maybe it wouldn't have been as good. I don't know. I didn't go out and test all that stuff, but it was just kind of funny. So I had myself, Mike Garcia, who actually helped at Savage, Georgia. Guy's definitely faster than me. Very enthusiastic, loves OCR, and did an awesome job. And then Christy, which I still don't even know her last name. Christy was somebody that Julie, the owner of Phoenix Race, knew. Like, maybe she's volunteered a lot for her in the past. And she was all about it. And she did a great job, too. I had very little time to give her instructions because of when they finally said, hey, here's Christy, she's going to help too. It was kind of too late. So we got our phone set up and went for it from there. But she did awesome. Like, I don't know. I don't think I have any critiques for her. Like, she did a great job. She rode around in a cart, so she got carted around for the most part. And she would jump out, film the obstacle, and then jump back in, and head to the next one. And so it's just us three. And for the 3K, Mike went out with the guys, I went out with the ladies, and come to realize we could have both worked the guys first because the guys were on the last obstacle when the ladies started. So basically, the majority of 3K, I could have helped with the guys. But again, we just didn't know the course. So it was like, at first glance, we were trying to find out, well, where can we cut course and do all this kind of stuff. So it was tricky, but I think we've covered it pretty well. And we did have basically eyes on athletes the entire 3K. And so when we did the live replay, we actually did it from my hotel room, and hotel upload speeds were decent. They were like maybe 15 megs. And so I was able to get our 3 videos uploaded in time. And actually, we didn't even have a time frame that we were shooting for. And Ian Hosick and Megan, I don't know, I can't remember her last name, from USAOCR. They're both chairs at USAOCR. Megan is, I am the OCR trainer on Instagram. But they came over to the hotel and commentated the 3K. Did a great job. And then for the 15K, this was even trickier because we had no idea where the course went, and we just kind of had to wing it. So Mike started kind of like, they had basically where the 3K was. You had all that section before they went, not before, but parts of that before they went into the mountain. And so Mike kind of went to like where the trail goes up into the hills. And then, so I followed the guys out the start. And then when they got to him, I kind of chased, like he chased the front runners, I kind of chased the backpack, and then let them go off the hills, and then I went back for the women. Now, he followed the men probably about almost as far as I followed the women. Again, neither of us knew where we should have turned or whatnot. We were just trying to follow the trail. But basically, the trail went up into the mountains, and this is the park trail, not the course. The park trail went up into the mountains, and then it splits where it goes left, right, and left. And then, if you follow the trail all the way, you'll come back on that left side of the trail. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. And so he followed the men almost to that point, and then cut out of the woods. And then when I followed the women out, I followed them all the way to that point, to that split. But there was no signage saying, like, they were coming back in that way. So I was like, okay, they gotta come out a different way. So I went and ran to where the rest of the 3K course was to, like, backtrack it and figure out where did they come from. And I made my way all the way to the rig with the hacks. And then from there, you could kind of backtrack where they came out of the woods. And the signage was decent, but it was weird because they had cones. So there was orange tape coming out of the woods down this hill. And then there were cones that almost looked like they blocked that exit and said, don't go there. But there was a sign on the, like if we're blocking the exit, the sign was on the side. Like if you ran up to the cones and said, these cones are blocking that trail, the sign was facing you. So if you were coming down the trail, the sign was on the other side of the cones. So it was weird because it's like, where is this correct? Is this where they come from? Because I can't quite tell. And so we followed a different trail down to where the sandbag carries were. And then there was nothing that made sense as to like where they would have come from. And this is just one of those things that got messed up from the hurricane that was not in the race. So instead, we eventually figured it out, and it's like, okay, they are gonna come down from this orange tape. I hiked up the hill, and saw, okay, here's a water station, here's another obstacle with an actual volunteer at it. So then at that point we knew, all right, this is where they're going to be coming from. So Mike stayed down at the bottom of the hill, and I went up the hill, captured the guys coming in through the peg wall. It's like a slanted, like an Olympus, but with a small pegboard at the top. And the pegs were metal dowels with a chain between them, so you can only get so much distance when you're trying to, traverse. Very interesting. And so they did that, and then I let them go down the hill, and then Mike picked them up from there. Once the guys came through, I went back up the hill and went even further to the tip top. I say the tip top, not the tip top, but the top, and got the women and ran down with the women. And then by that time, Mike was already done with the guys, and so he came back for the women as well. And so at that point, it was me, Helen, and Christy chasing the women around, and we had just had coverage the whole time. So there was a portion on the top of the mountain that we didn't see them, but Christy was up there with them in the cart. So she got a decent bit, not all of it, but she got a decent bit of them up there. She got video of Jonathan Stern on the rig, a low rig, and she got basically the top 5 or 6 guys on this rope climb that was at the top of the mountain. And that was at the tip top. It's pretty cool. So yeah, so she got some trail running up there. She got that low rig. She got the rope climb. It was really, really awesome. And then the rest of the trail going up into the mountain was covered a little bit by us. And then the trail coming down was covered by us. So now this one, so again, I knew that we didn't have the full race covered. So I said, okay, I'm going to edit this one for sure. And so I had to fly out I basically needed to leave the park at 4:30. And the race, guys start to women's finish, probably about 2:20, 2.5 hours. And so thinking, if it's a 2.5 hour broadcast, even if we edited it down, so I did edit it down, it ended up being an hour 20 with interviews. So it's like, okay, hour 20, we've got to get this uploaded and be able to start the show by, I say 4:30, hour 2 hours, so say hour and a half. So got to pack up. By 3, by 3 the latest. Yep. And I had to be out of my hotel room at noon. So I went to the hotel room, I packed everything up, and then I started editing. And I got mostly through the race. And then once I got back to the park, we had power there. So I was like, okay, we're going to do the show from here in the park on the spigot tube. And so I got back, and it took me about another hour to finish editing the race, I think, by the time I drove over there and did the edit, and then we had to set everything up. So at this point, it's 1 o'clock, setting stuff up, trying to get files uploaded. When I rendered the show, I rendered it to high quality, so it was like 25 gigs. Now, I did do a quality change in the app that helped bring the file sizes down. So even though we had, 2 hours and 20 minute race footage, it was like 6 or 8 gigs as opposed to 25 gigs. So that's great. And the quality didn't reduce by that much. Like when we have the time, it's better to have the high quality. But as far as time crunching, it really didn't make that big a difference. It's really much better to have those lower file sizes. But I mistakenly rendered it out at high quality, so the whole show was a 25 gig file. And I was like, okay, I'm getting great speeds here at the park, but all of a sudden I wasn't. So I went from 60 up to
maybe 15.0, which is still good, but not fast enough to get a 25 gig file uploaded in, an hour. So so it took like 30 minutes to render, and then I converted the file. So that took probably another 25, 30 minutes to convert it. It's probably more like 20. Like 20 minutes to convert it to a smaller file size, about 6 gigs. And then, and then that file had to upload. So at that point, it was like, okay, this file should upload quick because I had great speeds, but now I'm not getting great speeds, so it still took about an hour, or it was taking basically longer than we had time for. And so I was like, okay, I don't think we're going to hit the time frame we need, so I can upload the raw footage when I get home. We just let it be that. And Ian Hosick's wife was there, and she's a chair for USAOCR as well. And she said, can you just record it now? And I was like, well, we have it recorded. It's already recorded. And she's like, well, yeah, but the commentary and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. Why have I not thought about this before? That we can record, we can do the show, and it doesn't have to be live. We can record it. We can do the recording of the live replay with live camera switching if necessary, if I didn't do an edit, and live commentary, live graphics. And so that's what we did. And I was like, how have I not thought about this yet? So basically saying, okay, we're in a time crunch. We don't have time to let these files upload, but we do have time to record the show. We don't have time for both, but we do have time to do just the recording of the show. So we did that, ended up with I don't know what the file size was, but it wasn't huge. So we ended up with a file, and then I accidentally set the settings to where it broke the video apart in every 15 minutes. That's something I can turn off, so it's just one big file. But so I got it. So when I went to the airport, so we did the show. Everything's good. We finished the show. Now there are some caveats in there, like I couldn't get my camera that I normally use through vMix Call to show up as a camera source. It was showing up as a camera source, but it was saying it didn't like the resolution or the codec or something like that. And so we couldn't have our faces on camera, but I was still able to use our audio input just for the commentary. So there is no shots of us, which is totally fine. It's just our commentary over the video. And I also couldn't mute ourselves in our headsets. So I had to turn down the volume so that we could hear ourselves, but also that meant we couldn't hear the audio from the video, from the footage, which was fine. But so we had so we recorded it. Oh yeah, so I recorded it. I got it merged, all the files merged together, so that we're all just one file. And then I got it uploaded. So I got all that done. I got it converted and uploaded, or merged and uploaded in like less than an hour at the airport. So I didn't need anybody else. Like I didn't have to, it's not, nobody's reliant on me. Like this is totally what we could have done at OCRWC. We could have, and I did it locally on the laptop instead of having, since I didn't have to upload the file, I just did all this locally on the computer. And it was fine. Now we were only using one video file because I edited the show. So if we had multiple video files, maybe that would be, I need to test. We use test. If I'm not doing vMix Call and I'm not going live and I'm only recording, does the computer handle that? Can I handle 8 videos at one time? If I can, this is kind of huge because I can take a show, have up to 8 rabbits or more, whatever I want, just the time it takes to load the files onto the computer. We can do the show right away, and then take that file and upload it whenever we get the chance. So we're not hitting a live. So if we don't feel like we can hit a live time frame, then we just record it and then we just upload it whenever we get the Wi-Fi or internet. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great option for us to be able to get shows out without people having to wait around, without having to wait on me, without having to wait on crappy cell signal. And then you also don't get that like the 3K for the 100 for OCRWC. We had the bad audio because not the bad audio, that was my fault. But we had bad clipping of the audio, and it was like jumpy. And that was because of the internet, because the internet signal was not great. But when we're recording locally, we don't have to worry about that. Like all that stuff, all those problems go away because of this. So, very excited about that. Can't wait to see, when or where I can utilize that again. Like, I don't know. Now, you still got to bring equipment for that. So, like Savage coming up in 2 weeks. I want to pack light for that race, so I don't want to bring my mixer and my headsets and an extra monitor and all that stuff. So it doesn't make sense for that. For there, I still will record. We've got plenty of time to get the files uploaded because we don't do the show till Sunday evening. So no problem there. But there's definitely in the future where this is going to be a huge help. Like, this would have been a great solution at OCRWC. We could have recorded the show whenever we were ready, and then we could have just got it uploaded right after, and it would have been great. It wouldn't be live, but we're not watching the race live anyway, so what does it matter? Like, it's great. My brain is like, when she said, can you just record it? It just opened up a whole world of possibilities for me. And that's a great example of, like, when people suggest things, you don't shoot them down right away, because you never know what that idea might spark. Even if that idea wasn't correct or viable, it might spark something else. Typically when people give suggestions, it's like, well, we that would be nice, but I've tried this, I've tried that, I've walked through this, I've tested this, I've gone through it, I've thought through it. That happens a lot too. But you never know when a suggestion might spark something like this and just like expand your consciousness. This is what I feel like. So anyway, so that's it. Great weekend. Awesome people. Ian Hosick Megan did a good job too, but Ian Hosick commentated with me on the 15K, and I think we made a great team. Like, he did a great job of keeping the flow of the race going. He gave me a compliment, said I asked some great leading questions, and yeah, it was just really good. Like, we were both, tired from the weekend, so it wasn't extremely enthusiastic, but I think he was a great commentator. Definitely will look forward to having him again. But he said he's done public speaking in the past too, so makes sense. Anyway, good luck to USAOCR. I don't like the 3-band system, but let me talk about that real quick before we get into the airport here. I don't like it because of this is besides the obstacles. The obstacles do need to get clarified. If you're going to have this system where people only have one shot at some obstacles and they lose a band if they slip or like do something incorrectly when the rules weren't clear, you got to have clear rules for that kind of stuff. rules that people can know about ahead of time, other than the volunteer having to explain the obstacle to every single athlete as they get there. But the 3-band system itself, the fact that you got to take off the band or have somebody cut it before you can move on. We saw issues where the volunteer was cutting the band and something happened on the obstacle and they didn't see it. So you need to have more than one volunteer at each obstacle. Sometimes it's just the amount of time that it takes, which Ian pointed out that you can just rip it off yourself to do it quickly. But then at the end of the race, their thought is that it helps with the flow of the race because you don't have people sitting there backed up on obstacles. And I understand that. That's true. It is true. But for the excitement of the race, when you get to the end of the race, you can have 4 people on a rig, but not truly knowing who's in the lead, without looking at how many wristbands each person has on their wrist. I don't like it. It doesn't create as much excitement. I'm not saying it's not exciting, because it definitely we saw some exciting moments, but for 2 people to be on the rig and they can come off at the same time, and one of them have to do 1 penalty loop and 2 have to do 2 penalty loops, like keeping track of all that, I think, is the problem. It's not that it's not visible and viable, but like if you were watching the show, I would imagine having us explaining, okay, so Rachel's got 1 at this point and so-and-so's got 2. That probably is very helpful, but I don't know, man. It just seems like it's too much going on. Things are better, to me, simplified. And when you do all this extra stuff, it just makes things messy and harder to follow. So, again, we see all sorts of different ways for obstacle course racing to happen, and I am all about that. So I'm not saying it doesn't have its place. I'm just saying it is definitely not my favorite solution. And I'm trying to imagine a racing like that. I don't think I would want to race. But it's not like World Obstacle doesn't have its own negative connotations at this point anyways, so what is. But they are trying to work towards, something that is federated and the same around the world. And that's kind of the key there. So you gotta go off somebody. Somebody's got to say this is how we're going to do it, and then you got to go with that. So that's what they're trying to do, which I appreciate. I appreciate that they're working towards something like this, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I know, with the way that race went, how many people were there. You're going to see a lot of complaints. You're going to see people talk crap about, well, you should be doing it. You're saying you're doing it this way. You're saying you're doing it that way. Yeah, they're gonna complain. It's whatever. You can't get it right, right away. Especially when it's a small federation. It's not like it's funded or anything. People are putting in their own, volunteering their own time. Just like what we're doing. It's like it's a small operation. There's gonna be issues, and everybody continues to push forward without complaining, because that doesn't help. We see problems, and a problem is just a thing that can be solved, and solutions can be provided. It's not something to complain about. It's something to work through and make better. Because if you complain, it doesn't do anybody any good.
It doesn't help. If you have constructive feedback that can make it better, that helps. But complaints, nasty complaints, just stuff with no, like, that was dumb. Like, that doesn't help. That doesn't help. Anyway, I gotta catch a flight, go to Tulsa, and I'm gonna try to do some running out there because this weekend is Spartan Ultra in Dallas. I plan on running it because it's fun, and I need some distance leading up to World's Toughest Motor. And yeah. No racing. Yeah, probably no episode for me. You know, this is like 6-7 weeks in a row that I've had episodes. No racing for me. No episodes for me next week. You know, through, well, Savage. Couple weeks Savage. Anyways, for you guys that listen, you 50 people that listen, thank you so much. I hope you do enjoy it. Thanks for listening to me, like, process all this and get it out of my head, because I know I'm not the smoothest talker about it, because I'm figuring things out as I'm discussing it with the camera. So thank you guys for listening. I do hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you at the next one.